Constitutional scholar Rep.Boebert, she decided to go on Twitter and educate as many people as possible when she tweeted this. The Constitution is not evolving. To say that spits in the face of every single one of our founding fathers, that is. So we're spitting in the face of founding fathers by adding amendments to the Constitution. That was obviously put into perspective by many people who responded to her there, one being Eric Swalwell. He said if this was true, she wouldn't be able to vote. I don't think she thought about that, Eric. I think that slipped through her mind. There was lots of time and lots of space. Also, Carrie Pinbaker said 3/5 of me has questions. Truth. Also, this other user, Greta Grace 20 says, Lauren, the US Constitution has 27 amendments. It is evolving. You're not. Glad I could help clear that up for you. The problem is, Greta, it didn't clear it up for her at all. Also, one other user said, the Congress shall propose amendments to this Constitution, which shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of this Constitution, Article 5, US Constitution. Quite a low bar to ask GOP representatives to actually read the Constitution before commenting on it, but here we are. She mentioned the founders. I was just talking about us current people who don't understand what the founders did or said. Thomas Jefferson, he tweeted this.
He tweeted it.
He would have. Some men look at constitutions with sanctimonious reverence and deem them like the Ark of the Covenant, too sacred to be touched. But I know also that laws and institutions must go hand in hand with the progress of the human mind. As that becomes more developed, more enlightened, as new discoveries are made, new truths disclosed, and manners and opinions change with the change of circumstances, institutions must advance also and keep pace with the times. Thomas Jefferson speaking as many things that he was part of putting into that Constitution. So, cool. So this comes from the party that likes to talk about if you don't understand what you're talking about, you have no right to talk about it at all. That's specifically when it comes to guns. So if you don't know how to dismantle and reassemble an AK-47, or if you call it a machine gun when it's actually something else, technically, then you don't get to even talk about how much those machines kill people. So what if you don't know anything about the Constitution? What if you don't know the most basic thing about the Constitution? Should she shut up about it? Should she never mention it again? Should she leave and say, you know what, I think I'm gonna go back to running my restaurant because that's all I know?
JR, good news. You don't have to worry about that because there is no Second Amendment because the Constitution can't evolve. And the Second Amendment is an amendment. We are amending this document, meaning changing it. I literally have to explain that because some right-wingers can't understand it. So, by the way, who did the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments? The Founding Fathers. So, not only did they say in the Constitution that you can amend this Constitution, and then they wrote in their papers, as JR just read to you, you should amend this Constitution, they then amended it themselves. So it doesn't get any more evolving than that. But wait, there's more. So that part is obvious to anyone that isn't brain dead. And so, but some other folks on Twitter made some good points that I hadn't thought of, which is unusual. Okay.
Never seen it.
So seriously, for example, someone pointed out in the 8th Amendment, it has a clause against excessive fines. Well, almost any fine today, even traffic, you know, if you run a red light in some places, it costs you $500, right? Well, $500 would have bankrupted almost anyone in the country back when they wrote the 8th Amendment. And it would have certainly been considered an excessive fine. But they didn't amend the 8th Amendment, they left that language in there, and it hasn't been interpreted as based on current times. By the way, like Jefferson told you to. So every word in there is supposed to be interpreted based on current times. In fact, even the right wing to some degree agrees with that. Because back when they did the revolution, they only had muskets. So, you know, but now they say, oh, no, of course they meant semi-automatics and they meant this and they meant my rocket launcher, etc. But wait, it didn't say that, right? Oh, no, it's evolving when I want it to be. Oh, I see.
Like most things.
You know, there was a time in my career when people said that I tweeted things that were, I don't know, mildly offensive, or that I should have somebody check my tweets, and that was good advice. Of course, I didn't follow it, but in any case, I'm not a member of Congress. And what's so remarkable is, you know, when you talk to Republicans in Congress about whether it's Marjorie Taylor Greene or you know, Matt Gaetz or Rep.Boebert, they keep saying, look, we're not surprised that they're stupid. We're not surprised that they are idiots. We are surprised that they don't have anybody on their staff checking the stuff before it goes out. Fine if it goes out of their own mouth in live testimony or live hearing, we can't do anything about that. But your Twitter feed, come on, have somebody in your staff check your social media before you hit send on that thing.
Yeah, no, but David, with Trump, of course, as you remember, it got funnier because his staff couldn't control him. He'd send out weirdo things that were totally misspelled, weird capitalizations. We all knew that. And then, of course, the legendary Covfefe tweet. And then, but so the part where it got weirder is that they were like, no, he meant it. Everybody knows that needs to knows what Covfefe means. And then they would try to copy his tweeting style, but they couldn't do it. So they'd write like a halfway rational tweet, right? And then they would capitalize random words. We're like, we know that's not Trump. That has like an SAT word in it. It's inconceivable that it's him. It makes some degree of coherent sense, even though we don't agree with it, right? And you're not doing it right. So David, they're actually actively trying to write stupid tweets to copy whether it's a congressman or the president in their case. But there's a very serious point in here too. Look, and so it's easy to make fun of Rep.Boebert, but both the Republican and Democratic establishment are against amending the Constitution. So you might think, oh no, that can't be true. No, it's a totally 100% true. I've lived it for the last 10 years. Wolfpack is trying to amend the Constitution to get money out of politics. And in that case, it used to be the Republicans that used to fight us the most. I remember in New Jersey, the Koch brothers sent their lobbyists to fight against Wolfpack and they lost. But now it's the Democratic leadership that is most against amending the Constitution. So the resolution that Wolfpack tries to pass is a convention where the states can go around Washington, D.C. If you get 2/3 of the states to call for a convention, they could propose amendments. 3/4 of the states still have to ratify. So getting an amendment passed is difficult. There's no question about it. It has those two different layers. But Congress is never ever going to propose an amendment to get money out of politics and have 2/3 sign it. We can't get 50 senators, let alone 2/3. So Wolfpack, very logically so, said, oh, good news. The founding fathers were, in this case, geniuses. They built political revolution into the document. Those are called amendments. And they knew that Washington would get too corrupt. So we needed the states to have an avenue to propose an amendment. And Nancy Pelosi and the entire rest of the Democratic Party say, hell no. There's no way we would ever allow a convention. In fact, it got so bad, New Jersey repealed the Wolfpack Amendment because corporate Democrats told them to. So we beat the Koch brothers, but we couldn't beat Nancy Pelosi. So as we make fun of Rep.Boebert, which she richly deserves, understand the actual person most against an evolving Constitution and amendments is actually Nancy Pelosi.
It's because they benefit from it. This is their job. I always say this. Politicians' job is to get into office, and once they're in office, to get reelected. Because it's like you re-up your job application every few years, right? Depending on position, right? So you're trying to get back into office, and if this is the way that you exclusively keep your job or keep it minimized to a certain number of people that can even run for your job, why wouldn't you? With any other job, if you like your job, say you're an accountant, you make tons of money and you actually enjoy doing the boring things accountants do, and then there's tons of accountants that are like, I can do that better. You guys want to give me a chance to do that? And he has to actually let me talk to all of your clients about it, which you could, of course. But in this case, they get a chance to put up walls around who can get in because there's certain folks that are controlling them with so much money to prop them up so you can see their face all the time, run their ads all the time, hire the best writers, speech writers, and hire the best staff to promote them. All of this comes from these sources of income that are actually running their jobs and telling them what to do. So why would they ever change the rules to make it harder for them to keep their jobs that they would stay in for 50, 60 years?
So defy Boebert and Pelosi and the Koch brothers and join Wolfpack, wolf-pack.com. Why do you think they're against the convention? Because it's the only thing that can work. And the very last thing that anybody in Washington wants is real change. So don't believe their lies. Go and amend the Constitution. The founding fathers would be proud of you. That's exactly what the Constitution calls for. It says You know how they used to have that thing, steal this book from the old days, right? It literally says, amend this document in the Constitution. So go do it, wolf-pack.com, and don't ever listen to a politician telling you shouldn't.
On Twitter.
Well, and also never listen to the mainstream media when it comes to campaign financing and fundraising. I mean, you'll never hear the mainstream media talk about Wolfpack because the people who want to keep the current system the most, never mind the politicians, are the mainstream media, the networks that make so much money from advertising, from political ads. They're never gonna want to cut that off. You can't even have this conversation if you're at a CNN or MSNBC or Fox or the networks because it's not allowed. This is their cash cow.
No, by the way, Rick Sanchez had a conversation about money in politics. We ran it and said, he's in a lot of trouble. He was fired within weeks. They said it was a different reason, but we literally said on air, you can't say that on a CNN, they'll fire you. And a couple of weeks later, he was fired. So, and what David's saying is no joke. The last election cycle, there was at least $6 billion spent in political advertising. If you think a multi-billion-dollar corporation is not interested in $6 billion in revenue, you don't know a thing about capitalism. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.